Hello, everyone. A little bit of technical difficulties. I think that's not normal, but a little bit of technical difficulties. Happy Wednesday, everyone, and welcome to a new live stream where I will be taking questions from you about App Store optimizations and competitive intelligence. And I have been saying App Store optimizations way too often lately, but we'll start with tradition. What is in your cup? I'm drinking me some Earl Grey tea, my favorite. And I'm from New York. Where are you from? Tell me. I would love to hear. I know it's really late in some places, so I'm happy you're here with me. And actually, I also have a little bit of coffee this time because it's been one of those really busy mornings. So coffee, very acceptable. Tea, very acceptable. If you're drinking water, also very acceptable. Gatorade, maybe? I don't know. In any case, we're going to let more people shuffle in since we just started. Please drop a comment in the chat. I would love to know where you're from and what you're drinking, and get your questions ready. I have been taking a lot of questions over email and over Twitter over the last few weeks, and the questions a lot of them are pretty much the same, and they have to do with really strange stuff that's happening in the App Store these days. So I think I figured out most of it, so don't be afraid to ask. Ooh, people from Turkey. Well, hello from Turkey. That's got to be late right now. Spain, not too late, just the end of the day. Brazil, totally other side. I got to figure out how to put a map on the screen and have all these countries light up. It would be nice to see it. Truly global audience. Ooh, fizzy in Belgium. Now we're talking. Coffee in Montreal. I switched to coffee for a little bit. Ooh, white tea. White tea is good. Taiwan. Ah, that is far. Wow, we got quite the global presence here. That's really awesome. I'm really glad to see this. They used to say that ASO was only popular in Europe for the longest time, and clearly that's no longer the case. So, well done, people. Well done. I think we'll wait another minute or two, wait for a few more people to shuffle in. It's only 3 minutes, so I think we're doing well. Got rid of the technical difficulties, drinking some coffee. Tea with milk. I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, I do know how I feel about that, but that's not for camera. I'm sorry. All right, and I think we're ready. So if you have a question about App Store optimization, or about how to analyze competitors, or about how to understand how the two work together, please drop it in the chat. I will bring it up on screen and answer it. That's the goal. And one little thing, I noticed some people write a lot of in the question. Try to keep it succinct just so it can be visible on the screen for everyone. It makes it a lot easier. But I'll start by talking about something that I have been getting so many questions about lately, and that is ratings. And for those of you who didn't read yesterday's keyword teardown, ratings are right now becoming, or have become, or are, the most important thing for App Store optimization. Now, they're as important as making sure you're using the right keywords that you can compete in, and they're really as important as putting the keywords in the right place. But if you think about them as an amplification factor, so you use a keyword, if you have the right number of ratings, it will amplify to the point where it can actually be seen by the algorithm. That's what I'm talking about when I talk about ratings and how important they are. And they are now, in my opinion, one of the most, if not the most critical part of App Store optimization. And if you're using the right keywords, if you're putting them in the right place, but you don't have enough ratings, you're not going to succeed. So I've been saying that for a long time, and if you've been reading the Keyword Teardowns newsletter, you know that this is not new. I've been talking about this for months now. But, also, yesterday I shared a video where I share data about how many ratings there are cumulatively in the App Store and on Google Play, just so you get an idea of why they're so important. And they're so important because there are just so many of them. There's such a good signal. If you want to find that video, check the YouTube channel, or I'll leave a link to it below in the description so you can watch it later, not right now. But People come to me and they send me screenshots of the App Store, specifically from inspectors, saying, well, I have more ratings than app X, but that app is ranking better than I am. Or I have just about the same. Or do you think they're buying ratings and that's why they're getting ahead? And the answers to all those questions usually relies on the combination of keyword placement and not making any sort of mistakes, and then putting ratings into it. So if you're looking at ratings as a standalone number, it's not good enough. If you're looking at just keyword placement as a standalone, that's not good enough. If you're looking at the two as one amplifying the other, very good. So with that out of the way, I do see questions. And so let's take a look. Let's see what we have on the screen. I have a mini screen, so we got to do this one. Cool. So Daniel is asking, why sometimes when I enter a keyword in the keyword list, it drops position, and if I remove the keyword, it gains position. Let's bring this one up on screen and see if we can somehow make it work. This is not going to work as well as I would like. We're going to do this. Okay. Chat on. And the chat seems to work. So the real question is, what is the importance of the keyword list at this point? And how does that really combine with the name and the subtitle? Because those all work together. Now, historically, I always used to say that the keyword list is very separate from the name and the subtitle. So when it comes to stuff like keyword duplication, meaning using the same keyword in the name and in the subtitle, I always say do not do that, because that just devalues the keyword. And I have many instances where that's really true. But in the case of the keyword list, I always said it's separate. That changed with iOS 15. And so now the keyword list is no longer separate. So it really depends on how you enter the keyword into the keyword list. Is that a duplication of a keyword that exists in your title, in your name or subtitle? And if so, that's exactly what I would expect. I would expect that if you're duplicating between the two, you would lose that position, because what happens is, imagine if you're a developer and you know about string concatenation, imagine if you join all the strings that the metadata that you offer Apple. So you have the name, that's the beginning of the string. You concatenate the subtitle, so now you have a longer string of characters, and then you add the keyword list. And what ends up happening is that as you get towards the end, less important. Up front, more important. So if you duplicate, the algorithm sees the last instance of it in the string. And so what you're doing is you're really devaluing the keyword that you're adding. And that's normally why you would see changes to the keyword list really impacting ranks negatively. Now, if you don't duplicate and you still see keyword changes like that, that means something else is going on. And then follow up on the chat and I will try to figure out what that exactly means. And we can go from there. Let's see what else we have here. Wow, this is a lot slower than I expected. I'm using a plugin to bring all the questions on screen, and it doesn't work exactly as I would like for it to. A question from Annie. Annie saying, why is it on Google Play that branded keywords like names of companies or names of apps, have more traffic than generic keywords, while on the App Store side, generic keywords have good traffic too? So that's a question. I can try and summarize why I think this is happening, but it's really all about intent. So intent is, why is someone in the App Store? Why is someone on Google Play to get an app? And one of those ways is because they saw an ad, or they heard about an app, or they need to do something that is very specific. And so the need to do something very specific, like getting a calculator or getting a news app these days or something along those lines, would end up with a generic keyword, whereas a name like Instagram would end up with a branded keyword. And I think it's just the way that discovery happens in Google Play and on the App Store, the way curation happens on the App Store versus Google Play, the way search results work Google Play versus the App Store, but also the way that in general the stores are, and you have to kind of zoom out and not just think within the store, but think outside and on device. There are so many different ways to get to apps on Google Play these days, and you don't really have that same sort of flexibility on the App Store. So it's easier for developers to push more people to Android for very specific intents, starting from the web. It also works a lot better with Google, the search engine, where the App Store is a little bit different, and the App Store is kind of self-contained. So the intent of looking for something specific would actually happen within the store. Now, that's not bad. And I think from all of my experience, even though we see maybe a little bit more branded traffic on those keywords on Google Play, I see a ton of traffic on generic keywords as well, intent-based. So to me, it's not as imbalanced as I think it might sound. But on the Apple side, there is a little bit more intent. On the Google side, also because of the way the algorithm works, it's a little bit better to attract that sort of, to get to that. You have to work a lot harder with your App Store optimization for that to actually work. And I think that's really what it is. Or at least that's how I see it. And from my experience, I haven't touched really every possible category on Google Play, but I've worked with a bunch of different developers offering both games and apps in different segments, and that's normally what I saw. Now, also on Google Play, you can more easily go after branded keywords where you can't on the App Store. So if you are trying really hard, that's something that you might want to use, which I would recommend a lot less, not at all really, on the App Store. A quick question from Megan, who's saying, I saw your article mentioning Google offers. It's still not available to me. Do you have any new info on this? And the answer is, unfortunately, I don't. It's super new, and Google has been talking about this for a while, so I'm not entirely sure what's going to happen with this. I like the idea in theory. I think I like a lot of the ideas that Google Play puts out in theory. Some of them don't really materialize as well, and so it really depends on how they end up doing it, that I think will how they end up rolling it out. And obviously it's not there yet, so I don't know, but it would be, but I'm keeping an eye on it. A question from Milos. Milos is saying, and a question that I believe will get cut off on the screen, games on Google Play has a big drop in visibility acquisition, but nothing has changed in the past 2 months. What is the reason? Keyword popularity dropped, algorithm last 6 months, all was good. So for those of you who do not know, Google went through a huge change over the last few, I want to say over the last month or so. Correct me if I'm a little bit behind on this, but I want to say about a month since the beginning of the year. And the big change was how they handle the length of the name of the app and what's allowed and not allowed within names of apps. And I've heard from a bunch of developers who saw something very similar specifically on Google Play. And the idea is that Google knew that a lot of the names that happen on Google Play are kind of long because they stuff a lot of keywords into them. And they didn't like that anymore. So over the summer of last year, they announced that they will stop with that and will limit it to either 30 or 35. I don't remember exactly, but I believe 30 characters. So it matches the App Store. And it kind of makes sense. I think 30 is such a good number because it gives you a lot of flexibility as a developer to put out what the app does, which is the goal of the name. It's not supposed to be gamed for any purpose, but to also provide additional information. So the name of the app plus what it does really well, as opposed to a whole long string of things that it could do, maybe if you're into this sort of thing, so the algorithm can see it. And if you are driving here with me, you understand why a very long name is not really good for users. And so that's what's changed. Depends on how your name was. If it was longer than 30 characters, I believe they gave a few more days to change it, but I have a feeling that the algorithm just truncates at 30. And again, correct me if I'm wrong here if you have an app or a game on Google Play. And so the real issue is that now the algorithm is not seeing what you gave it. So something did definitely change, and that something is how the algorithm sees your metadata. And that's the thing that you want to fix, basically. So the easy fix would be to go in and basically redo your ASO around what matters, squeeze that into 30 characters, make sure you don't do any of the things they said not to do, like not including words like free or best or top, and then in theory, you should be fine. I don't know how long it would take to actually gain momentum because it really depends on the specific category you're in, within the games category, of course, and what the competitors are doing and what kind of game this is. So it's hard for me to just say how long it would take, but if you redo this right now, it will take a lot less time than if you don't. So, and I believe that at some point, Google will probably start penalizing apps that don't take care of this, even if they actually truncate. So it's kind of a double negative, not something you want to do. So that's what I would do. I would go and update that as quickly as possible. Let's see what else we have. And let's see if I can get this to work a little bit better. By this, I mean the comments on the screen. Haha. We're making this happen. One line at a time. So yes, there was an additional line that we were missing. And now we're no longer going to miss it. And we're in business. Talk about editing in real life, real time. I don't even know what I'm saying anymore. Okay, so continuing with questions. A question was retracted. Okay, so Ryan is asking a very good question. And let's see if I can bring that on screen now. The answer is yes. Does replying to reviews have increased impact as well? And the answer is no, because of two things. So when I talk about ratings, I'm talking about ratings, specifically ratings, not reviews. And I know that's something that gets easily confused because many people ask me, many people say back reviews when I say ratings. I just mean ratings. So the side of it that is, if you reply to reviews, you're not necessarily going to get more ratings. That's something. There's something else you can do to make that happen. If you reply to reviews, you're going to get a higher average, mainly because if you are targeting those low reviews and you're trying to get them to up their rating, you can probably do that by replying. The thing is, the algorithm doesn't really care about the quality of the rating. So that's why, and I get this question fairly often as well, people will ask me, how is it possible that my competitor has a lower rating average and it's ranking above me? And the answer is the algorithm doesn't really care about the average. So if it's a 2-star versus a 4-star, it could not care any less. It uses the number, the count of ratings as an indicator of momentum. And so indicator of popularity, indicator of momentum, indicator of people caring. And that's really the only thing. So if an app gets a ton of negative reviews, in theory, it shouldn't really impact. Now, I've seen it actually have a slightly different impact if they're all negative. And I think there's probably some sort of an edge case handling for this. But in general, I've seen apps that have a 1.8 average go all the way up to the top of the search results. And I've seen apps that have a 4.6 really be down below, again, because it depends on the quantity and not the quality when it comes to ratings. So replying to reviews, unfortunately, does not really impact anything that has to do with the ratings. And that's also the answer to Leonardo, who asked, is a bad rating as good as a good rating when it comes to ASO? And the answer is yes. Now, I'm not saying go out there and just try to get ratings in any way possible, even if they're negative, because I think that will also have negative implications on other things that you do, because people do use ratings as a way to evaluate apps, especially when they don't know if the app is good, the app is not good, and they don't have any sort of word of mouth or anything else that would give them that sense of, oh, I like this app. So they look at what they can, and the average rating is one of them. If you see a 1-star rated app versus a 4-star rated app, you're probably going to start with a 4-star and then try the 1-star if the 4-star doesn't give you what you want. So you still want to have enough in order to convince those users. It's not just about being able to be seen. It's about pretty much everything else. So that's that. Next question. Let's see. I've switched a keyword from subtitle to title, and it dropped in my rankings completely. Any idea why this may happen? No duplication at all. At all. Okay, that's good. Good that there's no duplication. It really depends on how you did it. So a few weeks ago, I discovered this, or I covered a bug in the App Store algorithm where they truncate the name incorrectly when you use specific UTF-8 characters. So, for example, if you're using an ampersand, or if you're using a dash, and I've seen it also happen with a colon, which is not even a special character. just characters that are not letters, basically, not letters and numbers. And I think what's happening is, and that's mainly from me looking at a ton of different keywords and search results, I think what's happening is that they inflate certain characters to take up more space than one, which sounds kind of weird, I understand, but that's what I'm thinking. And so if you have those extra characters, what would happen is the keywords at the end of your name would get pushed out and then truncated at 30. So it depends. If you added the keyword from the subtitle, you put it into the title, but at the end, and you have a colon or an amp or something like that, and together it's more than 30 or exactly 30 characters, or even 29 if you have multiple of those special characters, that's normally when you could expect something like this to happen. So it's not really the shift from subtitle to name, it's really the position in the name. So if you switch it to the beginning of the name, for example, that should have a much, much, much different type of impact on keyword ranks. That's what I would expect, at least. And if that's what you did, I would love to know. Like if you put it all the way at the end. So follow up in the chat. I'm curious. Let's see. Next. Seema was asking a simple question. How to put the keyword inside description correctly? So seemingly a simple question and very short and succinct. Thank you. But there's a lot that goes into the description, and this is specifically for Google Play. Apple does not read the description, at least as far as I know as of right now. And so there's no impact at making your description better. I also think most people don't read the description at all, so it's really about the first paragraph at the top, and I would leave it at that. But on Google Play, because there's no keyword list, and because Google is so good at reading lists of words, reading words on a page, because they scour the internet, you know that they're going to do something with this. So the right thing to do is to repeat. So there are two and a half things that you need to do in order to use the keyword right in the description for Google Play to rank for it. And one, you, again, have to find the right keywords. That's the half. Or half. You have to find the right keywords because that's really the most important thing. And then two, you have to use the keywords in a way that is repeated just enough times, not too many times and not too few times. So the algorithm sees it, but the algorithm understands you're not trying to game it. You're really trying to you're talking about a topic that the app is really relevant for. And so one, repetition. Repetition in everything else is a no-no. In the description, it's a yes, yes, by that analogy. Now, the other thing that you should do is, in addition to repetition, and that rhymed, you can also look at similar keywords that are either in line with the same keyword or keywords that describe the same intent, as I was saying before, the same intent, but in slightly different words. So keywords that are related and keywords that describe the same intent and are slightly different, and also use those throughout the description. Now, Google gives you a ton of characters, I think 4,000 or 5,000, and I would not say use all of them because I'm pretty sure just like everything else, the beginning is more important than the end. So focus all of this on really a description that you can imagine people reading. Maybe add a few more lines and a few more words just to make sure that you can convey what the app does. But keep in mind, if this was for a person to read, how long would it be? How would it look? How would it be broken up? And repeat those keywords. Now, you can, like I was saying before, you can repeat it too many times, and that's not a good thing. So we're working on a keyword density report that you can throw your Android app into, and it will tell you what you're doing wrong, what you can do to fix it, how much you're repeating it, and how much you don't have to repeat it. And then also offers some other pieces of information, like the popularity of keywords, so you make sure that you don't repeat very low popularity keywords and really just kind of hint to the algorithm that's what you care about by mistake. So we're working on all that, and I saw that report actually last week, and it looks beautiful in our beta. It's not accessible to anyone yet, but it will be very, very soon. We've taken a long time to make this report, so I am pretty excited about it. Hopefully that was a good enough answer. I can talk about descriptions for a very long time. I can probably do a whole live stream on just descriptions because so much goes into it. And when I help developers do their ASO, that's one of the most important things on Google Play, and that's the one thing that takes most of the time other than keyword research. So a follow-up question from Mitko, who talked to me on Twitter yesterday, and I saw a follow-up tweet today that I didn't have time to respond to because I was doing this, but I brought a keyword from subtitle to title, and it didn't affect the ranking. Now, there are a whole bunch of different reasons, again, why this would happen. Placement is very important, the type of keyword, the type of performance for the app. And I already started looking at your app, Mitko, and price definitely has something to do with it. You have a paid app that is not cheap, and so the way that the algorithm sees that performance data, even with ratings and everything else, is a little bit different. It doesn't make any difference that the app is paid, I don't think at least, but it's the consumption pattern that's probably different enough. You're also looking at a very specific keyword. I forgot what it was right now, or I'm forgetting what it was right now, but I'll follow up on Twitter, and I'll follow up on those tweets, and I'll give you my thought on it later today. Next. Sarp is saying there are certain keywords we never used in our title, subtitle, or keywords, but I see our app ranked for them. How does this happen? What a wonderful question, because I recently spoke to a developer whose app I actually looked at in the previous live keyword teardown that I did last month. And I believe the keyword I was looking at was Pro Camera, and the app that I ended up talking to later was the #1 result. And when I talked to that developer, the first thing he said is, you thought that we had Pro Camera in our keyword list, and we didn't. And that got me to do a lot of research, obviously, because one, it was very unexpected, but two, also there's this one side of the algorithm that tries. And Sarp added in the chat also, this is for the Apple App Store, which makes sense. And so there's this one part of the algorithm, and I don't know if this is a different part of the algorithm, or if it's a newer part of the algorithm, or if this is English only or US only, because I rarely see this. But in some categories, the algorithm likes specific apps, and it only or in some keywords, and it only likes them because it associates specific keywords with specific categories. So the app in question was an app that adds lens filters, I believe. And that has nothing to do with the camera, even though it does, because lens, but it was in the photo and video category. And so the algorithm gave it really the benefit of the doubt that it is related to a camera, which is very interesting. I don't think this happens for the entire category. And I don't think that this happens for, all the apps in the category. I think it's happening for maybe the top apps. And again, if you work on your ratings properly and you work on your keywords properly, I think the algorithm just rewards certain categories with this. I've seen this around education. I've seen this around sports. The relationship between sports and games is very different than between sports for things like sports scores. And that's also 2 keyword teardowns that I did back to back a few weeks ago that show both sides of this. So I would imagine that's what's happening for you, Sarp, and that's why you're seeing these results, which is a good thing. I think take advantage of it. And also very important, you have to be in the right category to get that sort of boost. It's hard to kind of bank on it. So I would say don't bank on it if it's a very important keyword. Let the algorithm help you with maybe long tail, but still target all of the very important ones that you want. That would be my thing. Akif is asking, do you think there's any effect of SEO on ASO, keyword retention from traffic, etc.? The answer is absolutely. I wrote a guide about the differences and the similarities also between SEO, which is search engine optimization, so optimizing your website, not your app, to show up in Google search results, Google because no one cares about pretty much anything else, and on App Store optimization, which is searches within the store. Now, this is specifically relevant for Google because Google actually cares about traffic that comes from the outside into Google Play. Now, in the case of Apple in general, I would say, remember how we talked about intent not too long ago? It's kind of the same. You don't know if someone who needs your app is going to go right into Google or right into the App Store. We know that enough people do that on the App Store. They open the App Store on their phone and try to find an app. But there's some people just on their computer go and try to figure out what they can get to solve their problem. And I bet you that specific categories are a little bit different and specific than other categories. And so in some categories, it would be way more important and some less. But I don't see any reason why you shouldn't spend time on your search engine optimization. And I know it's a whole other set of skills that you have to do, or set of things that you have to do. But at the end of the day, it is worth it. So even if you do a very basic, if you think about search engine optimization as having a website that really answers the why people would need your app, If you do that and you just make sure to keep that up to date and just follow all the best practices, I think that would definitely give you a boost both on Apple and on Google. And on the Google side, it can also impact your search ranks. So kind of a win-win the way I see it. And I'm a little bit behind on questions, but I will try to move faster. Daniel's asking, why are there times that a keyword goes up in rankings and the same keyword backwards goes down in rankings at the same time? 3D game versus game 3D. That's a good question. I don't specifically know because that's not a keyword that I look at too often, even though now I will. But my guess is that it has to do with popularity and it has to do with search patterns. So 3D game is something I can totally see myself searching for. Game 3D is maybe if I wanted a game and then last second thought, what kind of a game do I want? Oh, I want a 3D game. So I think it just patterns are very, very different. And the popularity of keyword really also factors into search ranks because a less popular keyword will allow apps that are slightly less, that have less performance, less ratings. Maybe the keywords are not placed as well in it. Keep also in mind that the placement of keywords and how you do what's first and what's second also impact ranks. And so you can't really target 3D game and game 3D with the same set of keywords in the same intensity. You can only do one because they're the same, just flipped. And if you repeat them, you're really going to target the lesser good one, if that makes sense. So that's the way I see it. And that's why I think you would see this sort of thing. Another question from Daniel is, if I have keywords in the title and subtitle and they lower their rankings, what can I do? The real question is, why do they lower their rankings? And so if you're getting pushed down, it's possible that it's too competitive and you don't have enough ratings to really support that keyword in your app's name. So the algorithm tries, it really tries, because you tell it, please rank me here, but it can't. Competitors are just overtaking you. I, again, looked at something similar with a keyword teardown. I don't remember exactly when. This is like maybe a month ago or so. And I'll find all these keyword teardowns later and I'll link to him in the description. So you can, if you come back a little bit later, you'll have access to all of them. But the idea was that I believe Time Tracker had a very specific popularity and it was very difficult to compete in it, but time tracking was a lot easier to compete in. And so that's what I would do. It might be one of those situations, and not knowing specifically what the keyword is difficult, but that's kind of what I would guess. And so that's what I would go after, trying to find very similar keywords that you can try and rank in, put those in the name, and then see how that works. Another question, how often does Apple extrapolate keywords from metadata on every update? So every time you submit an update, and you can only change these keywords when you submit an update, they re-index your app. Now, they re-index meaning they know what you're trying to target, and they do that to all the different competitors, but where they put it, because it depends also on things like ratings, that factors in ongoing. I've seen rank results change really overnight, multiple times a day. And we definitely see a shift between daytime ranks and nighttime ranks, especially in keywords that are more competitive. More competitive meaning not that they're more popular. More competitive meaning more apps are trying to rank for them. More popular ends up being a little bit more stable at the very high, very, very high area. So that's why specifically our rank tracking is on an hourly basis. It took us a long time to be able to do that because, as you can imagine, it's millions of keywords. It's a ton of countries. And so you multiply that, all of them together, and we have a ton of data. But at the same time, it's so important to be able to see information, to see these rank changes, how they change every hour. And you definitely see the differences, especially on the App Store. So Apple updates or changes their ranks all the time. And sometimes when I do keyword teardowns, and I try to do them as close as I can to when I publish them. So when you read them, they're actually the same if you go into Keyword Inspector, and that's why I put a link in all of them. But I put the screenshot there because I've noticed in some instances, even if I do it a day before, you could still see a difference a day later in the results, which is just crazy. But all these things are really, really good if you think about them because they're offering more opportunities for apps to show up in search results. So it is more competitive, it is more challenging, it is more difficult, but at the end of the day, it's more gooder. More good, better, betterer. Moving on. A follow-up that I just saw from Ryan. Wow, getting spammed with the review prompt. Now, here's the thing. You cannot be spammed with a review prompt the way Apple built it because it can only be shown 3 times a year. So it's really the opposite. It's really you have to very carefully figure out when to show the ratings prompt to your users. Now, I'm zooming out just a tiny bit because I've been talking about the ratings prompt or I've been talking about ratings for such a long time, and I've been getting this question all the time. How do you get more ratings? The rating prompt is number one best way to do it, and you can do it on Apple, you can do it on Google or iOS and Android, Google Play and App Store, and you have to do it. But the real thing is, it's not about the number of times you show it to people. It's about just the right timing. And then a lot of people tell me, but I don't know when the right timing is. I don't have the kind of app that has a happy moment. And I know that because our analytics app, AppFigures has an analytics app, a mobile app that you can download and see all the information that we track on the site. And it's very difficult to find the right place to put in a prompt because it's an app that provides you with information. And we don't really want to break up the flow of you coming in to find a specific number. And we just say, oh, hey, by the way, give us a rating. And you're like, I don't care. I just want to go find this rating. So I understand this challenge very well. And there are techniques to really figure out when people want to do it. But at the end of the day, if you just show it after an update, for example, that's all you need to start the process of getting more ratings. I doubt you're going to spam anyone, and I doubt you're going to be in a position where people hate you. And especially with an app like Ryan's, an app that has a cult-like following at this point, I think just give them the ability to rate. That doesn't take a ton of friction, like clicking a link and opening the App Store and going somewhere else. Give them just the ability, and they'll do it. I was talking to a developer on Twitter who went above and beyond to ask for ratings, and his way of doing it was to actually ask for ratings. So he opens up a prompt when you use the app, and he tells a story. He tells the user who he is, who the developer is. He explains that he's an indie developer, and that's all of his income is coming from this app, and that ratings help him do better in the App Store, and asks for a rating, which I thought would be a little bit much. And I thought people would just kind of go, too much information. I just want to use this app. But I think it actually worked for this particular guy. And he didn't really get any people who are saying bad things. He didn't get any negative ratings. He got positive ratings and also very positive reviews. People who are really happy, people who want to contribute and support and help. So I know it's probably hard to say just go and ask your users for rating, especially if you don't think that your users will appreciate it. But they will probably appreciate it, and they will appreciate the opportunity to help you. So yes. That sums it all up. Okay, a longer question that is definitely cut off. Although my app has more downloads and ratings than its competitors, it is ranked far behind. Some of the competitors do not even use this keyword in their metadata. Could this be due to retention? Yes, no, and maybe. It depends on the store. Google does a lot with retention and deletions and the rates and all of that thing. Apple doesn't, to my knowledge. A few live streams ago, there was someone who said that Apple is now doing that, and they had that experience firsthand. I have not seen it enough to be able to say this is true. I'm not saying it isn't, but I don't think so. My guess is that it has to do something with the way the keyword is optimized, or something is probably off. You have ratings on the one hand, you have the category you're in on the other, and you have the way you use keywords, and all of those together combine to give you that presence. So I would say it's worth looking at the entire picture before saying that if it has anything to do with something inside the app on the App Store. On Google Play, absolutely. So you can't easily know what the retention is for other apps. And I wouldn't even go down that route because that's irrelevant. The only thing you can do is really improve yours. You don't have to be better than them. You have to be best. And so I would look at your own retention. And if you know that your retention on Google Play, your day one retention is bad, that is definitely a problem. I don't think Google looks for anything else. They look for crashes. They look for immediate deletions. And that's if you're really misadvertising your app and people are downloading it expecting something else. And if you're not doing any of those things and you are focusing on day one retention, I think you should be fine. And it really has something to do with how the name is probably, or what kind of keyword is being used, maybe the combination of keywords or the length of the name. There are a whole bunch of reasons why this wouldn't work. A follow-up from Megan, back when we talked about Google Play names, and yes, so 30 characters, you were not forced to change your name, but you can't update the app, and they do truncate it, meaning that the algorithm doesn't see beyond 30, even if you have 30, which I think is actually really fair. I think Google Play has changed so much, and I don't want to go on a tangent and run out of time, but rather answer questions. But Google, I think, is doing a lot more things to make Google Play really a lot more useful and a lot more clean and a lot more better. And if you look at the numbers, I look at the numbers all the time because I analyze apps for my Friday newsletter and also my videos. And I can tell you that between Apple and Google, and if you read the newsletter, you know that the revenue on Apple versus Google are just night and day. And Google definitely wants to change that, in my opinion. And it's not just a thing that's in the US versus other countries, but it's one of those things where they need to gain more, they need to clean it up before it can be a channel for revenue, as big of a channel for revenue for as many apps, not just the top of the top. And so all this makes sense, and all this is really, really welcome, and I'm glad to see it happen. I think in a world where we have 2 stores is better than a world where we only have 1. And I can talk about that for days too, but I'm not going to do that. A question from Matt. Would it be okay to replace a title with a colon to a dash without spaces to avoid 30 characters truncated problem? Happy Feed journal versus Happy Feed journal. Yes and no and maybe. So I'm pretty sure that from a technical perspective, you're not going to have a challenge between the words seeming like one word. The algorithm will know to split them on that dash as opposed to on the colon. It's a question of how you like what you see. I think it's important to keep in mind that the algorithm is the algorithm, but humans are the ultimate target for this. And so you don't want to have a name that feels like a bunch of keywords. You really would rather have a name that feels like it's the kind of name of a legitimate app, of a professional app, if it's a professional type thing, or a thing that would just fit people. So it's not a bad thing. And if you're okay with it, I think it's fine. But it's really up to you and up to how you want to have your branding and the name of your app shown. That's how I would look at it. That's how I look at it. I recently helped a friend who has an app, and we kind of ended up with the same thing. And what we ended up doing is we looked at all the keywords that were in the name, in the subtitle, and we decided that we had a keyword that we just wanted to have in the name because we wanted it there, not because it was actually very popular. And so we ended up removing it, and that made everything easier. And the idea was that we'll remove it because we want to focus more on those main keywords that we had in the name all the way up front. And then we didn't have to worry about dashes or spaces or commas. And it might sound weird, like why would you want to target fewer keywords? But you want quality, and I think you can continue and have iterations. And when you iterate, the algorithm remembers. And so I would recommend not putting yourself in a situation where you have to find little things, little tweaks like this, but rather truncate it in a way that gives you enough headroom without forcing you to use specific grammatical choices. A question. My apps operate in Malaysia, but I receive many downloads from overseas. Any particular reason why? Where do I even begin? I would have to look at the app and tell you, but it's possible that it's doing really well. I would recommend dropping your important keywords or just even your basic keywords. Or actually, you don't even need to do that. Go open up Discover Keywords. Discover Keywords is a tool that shows you all the keywords you ranked in by country, by store, by device. So open up Keyword Discover for your own app. This is inside the optimization tab in App Figures. And you know what? Let me show you. I think I can. And where's my mouse? My mouse is here. So inside of here, we have Discover Keywords. And what this will do for you, and I got logged out and I got logged back in. So what this will do for you is once you pick an app, it will tell you exactly where all the keywords that this app is ranked in that we've seen. And so I would do that for the big countries where you're getting most of your keyword traffic or most of your downloads, your unexpected downloads from. And see, maybe you managed to rank #1 for a very popular keyword, and that's why that's happening. And so, for example, in 30 Days Fitness, we see them ranked in a bunch of places, and we can easily sort this. So I would go here, select the app, then sort it, and probably also remove, let's remove apps or keywords that are not very popular. So I'm just going to drag this up to 20-ish almost. And now you have an idea of where your app is ranked. Obviously, your app is not 30 Day Fitness, or if it is, great. That was just a guess. But this will give you a really quick way to know if your app is ranked. You don't have to input any keywords. I didn't type all these in. They're just there. So that's what I would do. And that would be kind of like step one to figure out if it's ASO related. And then if it's not ASO related, you might be featured in some of those countries. You can drop into analytics and then the featured report, and then see if your app is ranked or if your app is currently featured. And the idea would be that let's go and try that quickly. So let's go here. And let's go here. And here you would see if your app is featured in any country. So I have a bunch of apps that I don't own, obviously, because I do a lot of research. But if we click on any of them, we can easily see if it's featured in any country. So now we see that Dropbox is featured in pretty much a bunch of places. And again, not an app that we own. And you can do that for really any app, not just your own app, because all this data is public and we collect all of it. So those would be the main two areas where I would look for whether my app is, if my app is getting more traffic, if that's really it. Traffic, downloads, mainly downloads. So that's how I would approach this. Now, if neither of those are the case, it's probably advertised somewhere else. And there are different reasons or ways to look that up, but I would start with those two. That's normally what causes more downloads that you're not expecting. A question from Daniel. What are, for you, the top 3 world ASO professionals that you suggest to follow them because they share good ASO info? Honestly, I don't know. A lot of what I do comes from my own research, and a lot of what I do comes from just me working with developers. I don't normally go beyond that. I am on a few Slack channels that I will link to below where there are a lot of experts who talk about their own experience. I think those are really great. I would recommend just reading as much as you can about what's out there. That would be my way of doing it. And also just experimenting with your own apps. I think that's really the way to do this. Then a follow-up, are there any specific conferences related to ASO that you would recommend attending? There are a few. There's actually one in New York in May, the App Growth Summit or something along those lines. And I'll be there because I'm in New York. So if you are coming, come say hello. And I can link to a few in the description later. There are a lot that happen in Europe. And I think as time passes, we see more of that coming to the US, which is really great. In another follow-up from Megan, we're like in 17 different threads at this point. To add to what Sarp said, I see the same happen. Could it be from article listing sites mentioning these keywords? And I believe this relates to the traffic for keywords that you are not optimizing for. And the answer for that is yes on Google Play. So because Google Play looks at the traffic that's coming into Google Play, and it has access to those websites through Google proper, it knows what to take out of the A tag, out of the link, basically, and turn that into a keyword. That's a technique that works for search engine optimization a lot less now, but used to. And that works on Google Play. So yes, absolutely. And again, like I was saying before, search engine optimization works very well for Google Play. And I should probably do some sort of a write-up on that at some point in the future. So if you're into that sort of thing, leave me a comment so I know that you're looking for it. A question. If I want to rank on a long tail keyword, is it better to separate the keyword into single words or to put the whole keyword composed of several words? So you should really never think about a keyword, a multi-word keyword, as a single set of words. It's always a bunch of words that can be mixed and matched, moved between different places. And when it comes to something like long tail, meaning keywords that are probably lower in popularity, but you want to have a lot of them. So you're covering a lot of different categories or a lot of different intents or a lot of different variants of the same intent. You want to think about it as multiple words that together join to have one keyword. And that's what happens in the keyword list on the App Store. The same thing will happen on Google Play, depending on the intent and depending on your phrasing, because it's the long description we're talking about. So what I would do is I would break it up in the keyword list. The keyword list is a great place on the App Store for long tail keywords. And in the keyword list, nothing needs to be a single word. It's always one word at a time, separated by a comma. It doesn't even have to be pluralized, even if you think it should be. And so that's what I would do. And there is an example here. And the example is learn piano and play piano. Should my keyword list look like learn piano, learn, play piano, or learn and play piano? The first one. So learn, play piano. Again, they're each individual words. Now, in general, you don't want to have any spaces in your keyword list, and you don't want to have any repetition in your keyword list, and you don't want to have any words like and in your keyword list because they are ignored by the algorithm. We also have a tool where you can drop your keyword list into, and it will automatically optimize it for you. And it goes through, I think, 7 or 8 different steps to clean it up so you have more space. And then you can use more of that keyword list. I'll link to that too somewhere in the description. I'm just being funny. So yes, separate words really all the time. Now, for something like learn, play piano, I wouldn't even put that in the keyword list. Play piano is really important. It's a super important keyword, super popular. I did a keyword teardown on it last year, I want to say. And piano is my second favorite instrument after guitar, although it is more popular than play guitar, interestingly enough, or at least it was back then. So you want to have that in the name. And so you wouldn't even have to go all the way down to that. I would put learn and play and piano and guitar all in the name. Now, let's say your app is not for guitar. You can forget about that. But if you also wanted to target people who might be looking for just learning new instruments, not necessarily piano, that I would put into the keyword list as a long tail keyword. So learn instrument. It's probably a terrible idea, and the popularity on it is probably really little. So that's just for example purposes. Carlos is asking, also have that storytelling thing in one of my apps. I don't think that's a question, so we're going to continue. Far saying, hi Ariel, should we use all available characters in the keywords or only focus on a few strong ones? Hi, hello. It really depends. So over the last, I want to say 6 or 7 months, I've been writing a keyword teardown every week, and I have covered both cases. So I've covered cases where you want to expand and use as many words as possible across your name, your subtitle, and your keyword list. And I have seen instances and shared instances where just having 1 or 2 keywords at all is the most important thing. And it really depends on your competitors. So the title of this live stream was also looking at competitors, because that is really kind of what influences how you do certain things. And some keywords or something that I see that I hear all the time is I didn't change anything and my ranks dropped. And I hear that way more often than I had thought would happen. It really surprises me, because the App Store is not just about you. Ultimately, it's about everyone else, including you. So if your competitors are doing a better job at anything, whether it's getting ratings, moving their keywords around, picking the right keywords, finding keywords that are changing in popularity, all those things, if they're doing that and you were just coasting by, you're no longer going to be able to coast by. And so it's possible that in some keywords that were slightly less competitive, again, not necessarily popular, but competitive, you would be able to just use as many words as possible and target all those different keywords. And then because of competition or because of changes in popularity, now you have to focus on them more. So it really depends on your keywords. I always say start with more and then slim it down, and always make sure that you look at what competitors are doing. So if all of your competitors are using 1 word and you're using all 30 characters, you probably have to think about why. And you should probably load them up in the competitor keywords report and see the differences between what they have and what you have. And that's an easy way to see what's going on. So that's what I would do. Simo is asking, if you rely just on ASO, the algorithm takes time to rank you in keywords. Is there a way to help the algorithm? Absolutely. Do everything right. So put the keywords in the right place, meaning most important keywords go up in the beginning, the less important keywords go at the end. Focus and make sure that, again, like just what I was saying before, if you're in a competitive keyword, and at this point most keywords are competitive. I found a few keywords that that I thought would be competitive, but they were not, and that surprised me a ton. I think there's at least 1 or 2 keyword teardowns on that from late last year, but that's pretty rare these days. So you can spend the time to find those keywords, and that would definitely help. And if you don't, just make sure you do everything right. And another thing is, and this comes directly from yesterday's keyword teardown, is you have to also understand how the algorithm treats trends. And trend, I mean changes over time. And so I've been suggesting getting more ratings, and some developers have emailed me and said, I'm getting more ratings now. Why do I not have a better rank? And the answer is, you've been getting more ratings for 3 days. Not enough. The algorithm wants to see that over a slightly longer period of time. And depends on how many ratings we're talking about. If it's 10 additional ratings or 1,000 additional ratings, that would also impact the time that it takes to hint to the algorithm, hey, I'm here, I'm important, come say hello to me. So you can help the algorithm by getting more ratings faster. And that's a really good way to do it. I'm not saying go and buy ratings. That's always bad. And again, based on yesterday's keyword teardown, we know that now Apple is starting to fight fake ratings. And if you want to see what I mean by that, check out that keyword teardown. It was really insightful for me to see. It was only something that I shared a little bit of. So I'll do more on that as I see more of this happening, hopefully on some sort of an interval. But that's something that is important to keep in mind. So do not buy fake ratings. They're not good. And if anyone tells you to buy fake ratings to succeed in ASO, don't listen to them. Just don't. Okay, a question from Jeff. App name was Interval Pro Interval Timer, which was the max. I was number 5 for Interval Timer. I changed this week ago to Intervals Pro Interval Timer to shorten. Do you think it will help rankings? No, you're committing the terrible sin of repetition. Interval and intervals is the same thing, the way the algorithm sees it. So I'm glad we're actually on this. So you are really repeating in the name. 1, you're wasting characters. And 2, you are hinting to the algorithm that interval should really, it's the last instance that matters. And so it's not going to see intervals pro. It's just going to see pro interval timer. Now, is that terrible? Yes and no and maybe. I think ultimately what you're doing, because it's a kind of a longish word, it's got a bunch of characters, it really devalues the amount of weight that it can put, the algorithm, on this word. So the repetition being so close, and I understand why it's done here because it's a part of the name and you don't really want to break up the name, and it's really tough to squeeze timer into this. I would actually rethink this whole thing. So if I'm a user, I don't need to read interval twice. And I think if I'm the algorithm, I don't need to read interval twice either. So I would do something where intervals pro is the name of the app. And it's nice to have that up front. And then use timer and something else as the name of the app, and then have other things in the subtitle. That would be my go-to. If you want, you can tweet at me or send me an email. I'll give you some more thoughts on this because I can talk about this for far too long, and I think we only have a minute left. So let me scour the chat quickly to see if there's anything really, really important. There is a question that I think I can answer really quickly, and that is, how much time will it take for a game to rank in Google Play after publishing? And the question, again, depends on pretty much performance. So if you are getting more ratings, if you are pushing probably with ads or out of the App Store, out of Google Play, any sort of promotion. And I have a whole guide on how to promote for money and not for money. And I would highly recommend doing that. So making sure that people see the app. We talked a little bit before about links coming in. All of this initial traffic is exactly what's going to make it or break it for your app. Again, if you pick the right keywords, if you do everything right, it shouldn't take very long. Google Play is kind of slower than the App Store, but it's not that slow. And so within a month, you should probably be able to see good results if you're doing everything right. And let's see. Last question. Do you still think having Spanish Mexico keywords helps with US rankings? And the answer is, so far, yes. I haven't seen anything to suggest otherwise. And so I would safely say that that's the case. And so that's pretty much it. I know I've been talking very fast, but I ran out of time, and I do want to end at the end. So if you have any more questions, drop them in the comments below. I'll take a look at the comments in just a little bit, and I'll use it to get back to everyone. I'll try to take also all the comments from the chat that I didn't read and answer them in the comments for the video. So if you left a question in the chat and you didn't get an answer to it, you'll probably get an answer within the next few hours. I really want to answer all of them. And that's pretty much it for me. Hopefully you enjoy this. If you want to see me again, I'm going to do this every month on the first Wednesday. And so I'll send emails about it, of course, but subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you get notifications when I go and do another live stream of these, and start asking your questions as soon as you get in. And that's pretty much it for me. Like I said, if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. If I didn't answer your questions, I will answer them in the comments. If you like this video, I think I'm going to get more views, and that's going to make me happier. So let's give that a try. Otherwise, I will see you all in about a month. So that's it from me.